Okay, well, this is the Dis/Abilities panel, and I figured one of the things that is interest is it's a bit twofold. There's the disabilities that the authors themselves have, and how and why you would incorporate it into your fiction to broaden the collection of types of characters you have. So let's introduce our panel. I am Heather O'Malley. I'm a 50-year-old trans woman, military vet, 100% disabled due to bad shoulder, kidney stones, and PTSD. So I incorporate a bunch of fun stuff into my works. Next.
Hi, I'm Tenacity. I'm kind of more of a baby than most people on here. I've only published a couple short stories, and I'm currently querying a book about depressed college students in space. Yeah, depression, anxiety, OCD, and PTSD. That's what's up with me. Next.
Next.
Hi, I'm Ceeley. I write middle grade young adults. Air Force veteran. I'm autistic. Now I can't think. So this is what's happening there. Just chronic pain, chronic illness, all sorts of fun stuff.
Okay, and Cody?
I'm Cody Sisco. I write cyberpunk and alternate history generally, and then sometimes I dabble in urban fantasy, especially with short fiction. I have far more experience with depression and anxiety than I would like, but that also gives me a perspective that I try to incorporate into my stories and help readers understand things that they may find familiar or may find unfamiliar, but that I've got something to say about.
Okay. Well, one of the first things that I always think about as a writer with several mental health challenges is how do you remain motivated or stay focused to do your work when you might be having one of an alphabet soup of things rise up? Because I know we run the gamut of various issues, and they're very good at derailing things. Well, how do you get things on the rails when you're dealing with particularly mental disabilities? Anyone?
I'll say I have to treat it like a school project. Everything I do is like a school project. I write down, I have to do this much on Monday, I have to do this much on Tuesday, I skip Wednesday, do this much by Friday, and as long as that much gets done, it's okay.
Okay, so you set accountability goals.
Yes.
Tenacity, you were saying?
Yeah, kind of jumping off of that, my OCD kind of makes it so that if I make a list, I just have to cross off everything on the list, which I guess is kind of where the Dis/Abilities kind of thing comes into play.
Well, yeah, I mean, if that's actually utilizing your mental health challenge as a positive tool to make what you want to have happen. I mean, that's really clever.
Hacking it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I've had to hack all sorts of things. I mean, personally, when I was dealing with, when my PTSD was at its worst, the therapy was doing mostly okay, but it was writing a 385,000 word Harry Potter fan fiction dealing with all the characters having massive PTSD that I actually managed to get a hold of it because I ran through every permutation of thing, and my brain was able to go, oh, wait, that's what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I rely on organization and making a big plan and having it chunked out, to a ridiculous degree in order to manage the anxiety around getting something done. Because when it's, a large task like, oh, I need to finish this book that I'm writing, that can feel like a sort of monumental weight that, you can't bear. But if you chunk it down into, the steps that you need to accomplish and focus on the ones close at hand, that can help, for me at least, minimize the emotional stuff that gets wrapped up in the creativity and the writing process. Sometimes it feeds the process, sometimes it holds it back.
I get that. Okay, how about physical disabilities? Anyone besides me have those? Ceeley, okay. How does your physical disabilities get in the way of some of your creative tasks?
I have back pain, knee pain. It's debilitating some days. I use a cane about once a year in winter because of weather. Some days I just have to take a day off. It's even not writing, but then going on and doing like character sheets, really thinking about other things that I can do that isn't just more words in the book.
That's fair. I mean, the young adult series I'm working on came to me in a massive migraine. I mean, I wanted to die, and instead of my brain doing nothing, which would have been lovely, it was here's an entire 9-book series. Have a nice day. That was an absolute pain in the ass. And every time more ideas come up, it's always in a migraine. But like I have chronic kidney stones, a bad right shoulder. So, I mean, when the pain is bad, yeah, I turn to plotting or something. The VA actually bought me Dragon Naturally Speaking. And so I when I can't use my right arm, that helps me continue writing, because sometimes I can lose myself in the work and not get focused on, oh my God, I'm in pain. I'm like, oh, these characters, I'm going to do something terrible to them right now because it'll make me feel better.
Exactly. The children in my stories always get traumatized when I'm feeling bad, either physically or mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I also find a lot of really good writing comes out of, oh my God, I hurt, and I'm going to torture this person, and someone else will read it because they won't have to go through that situation and might hopefully get something out of it.
Right. Yeah. The experience of going through it is something, I mean, it's, we're always bringing that into our work, but there isn't really enough representation. And so we're bringing something actually that hasn't been seen very much before.
Well, and like you said, Cody, that takes us to the next part, the representation. I mean, when you create characters, do they naturally have similar health issues or some sort of disability, or is it something you have to remember to put in instead of trying to write characters that are actually kind of perfect?
I feel like, as far as my theory of mind, like I might find it difficult to write someone without massive amounts of anxiety. What would that even be like,
Yeah. I mean, I had a comment. Someone said, oh, hey, you wrote this panic attack so well, it gave me a panic attack. And if I had never had them before, there's no way I could have done that. No way. And so, yeah, maybe we can't write, quote, normal characters, whatever the hell that means. So
I mean, that's part of why why I write. Like in macro picture, it's to break down these ideas of that there is a normal, that there is a sort of mean that we're all supposed to be working towards, and just blow that up out of the water, because it's harmful. It's harmful in life, and like it's boring in reality, in fiction or in literature. So part of what I hope my books do is kind of subvert those ideas of what's normal, and give the readers a sense that like actually people are coming from very different places, and they're being invited to see those different worlds in my stories. I hope.
Yeah, I get that. Ceeley, is that similar to your approach?
Say the question again.
When you write, do you try and let people in on another part of the world that they may not be seeing, to hopefully expand their understanding of people?
Yeah, I've done that. In the book I'm writing now is about a autistic young girl, and just as she goes through life, and it's very from her point of view, and that gets very confusing for her, and showing that to other people, I hope is helpful.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, there's a book that people like, oh, it's so famous. I think it's The Incredible Event of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the character is, has autism, and is very neurodiverse. And I keep wondering, is this a good portrayal or not? Because I mean, a lot of it is, the author doesn't really have a lot of experience with, being personally neurodiverse from everything I've seen him say. So how accurate is their character as a portrayal of that kind of neurodivergence?
Mm-hmm.
Someone's saying in the chat that they read it, and that as an autistic person, they found it to be horrible representation. And
Yeah, that
was my experience with it too. I saw, for some reason, my parents bought tickets to the Broadway musical, and it was very like, I don't know, tragedy porn, I guess you could call it.
Mm.
Yeah, there is a large trend of tragedy porn in a lot of stories with disabilities or neurodivergence or any of this. So yeah.
I mean, there's some tropes that I try to avoid. I see something in the chat about disabilities as superpowers, which you see a lot of in popular media, and it's, again, going back to things that are harmful. There's things that you should have, anything's fair game for an author, right? But if you're going to do something, you should know kind of what you should try to shape the reaction, and use your power with words responsibly. And there's ways to do it that's gonna be bad, and ways that are gonna be good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the TV show Monk relied on, this guy has such crippling OCD that he notices every little detail that could possibly be a clue to the mystery of the week. And there's a lot of that.
A friend of mine, he also has OCD, and so he always said that he loved that show and he found it great representation. But then I don't really like it or find a good representation for me, which is a really fun, I don't know, tension within that discourse. It's like different people see truths in different things,
Yeah. Yeah. Has anyone, I pulled this out, has anyone read The Speed of Dark by Elizabeth Moon?
No, but I love her work.
Yeah, so it centers on a man with autism, and at the center of the tension in the book is about the idea of a cure, and all of the ethics that go along with that. I found it to be a pretty good read, but again, there's always a question in my mind, like, what's the relationship of this work of art to reality or to specific people. But that's one that I did enjoy reading.
Yeah, that's not bad. Like I finished a contemporary fiction book that I'm trying to sell, where the main character is a infantryman in Iraq, and he gets blown ass over tea kettle by a rocket propelled grenade, and has permanent disabilities. I mean, walks with a cane from then on, had a messed up arm, and all that time being alone let them realize they were trans. But I deal a lot with moving around, limping. How do you deal with this? How do you adjust your life to make sense of these new challenges that these health issues throw your way? Because yeah, maybe some people don't have these same health challenges, and so they won't think of things. I mean, the number of people who bitch about the American Disabilities Act, saying we don't need all that stuff. What the hell? Because they've never had to be in a wheelchair or blind or deaf or any of that. And so, yeah, I think Cody, your notion of we're kind of ambassadors to a world these other people haven't been to.
Yeah, I was thinking about the ADA, like in the lead up to this panel, and how it's done a lot, especially for physical disability and for visible disability. But we're kind of I would like to see a more accommodation and more adaptation that makes that allows for people to have full participation in economic life, whatever their ability, right? And I don't know. I just think that we're in a system that rewards being able, and I'd like to be able to be in a different world where that wasn't the case.
Ableism certainly is championed more so than people who have various disabilities. I mean, the system constantly tries to find ways to ignore the ADA. I mean, there are a lot of buildings where you see how they put the wheelchair ramps in, and they are the absolutely most worthless things ever. You have to go like 5 times the distance to go up a flight of stairs. And yeah, there are a lot of invisible illnesses that are utterly debilitating, both physical and mental illnesses and problems. And without being able to give people an understanding, they're not going to reach out their empathy unless that's just who they are. I think if you think about like Geordie LaForge, his character brought a lot of the notions of visual disabilities, front and center. His character was right there. Or the fact that you have James Doohan, Scotty, was missing fingers and had physical disabilities because of having fingers blown off in D-Day, and yet you almost never notice that in things he does as Scotty. It's all after the fact that you get that. Sometimes it would be nice if it's in things, like how in Batman, Oracle is confined to a wheelchair, but that doesn't make her any less a superhero in so many ways.
I'd love to hear more about your books and what writing you're working on, and like what are you thinking about, as you go into them. What's top of mind for you?
Tenacity, Ceeley, either of you start us off.
Sure. I guess I wrote this one scene where like a character ends up having like, well, so she's a college student and her RA kind of like intrudes into her space, which can be really like jarring when you have OCD, both on the level of like, I don't know, stuff on the bottom of people's shoes or like people moving stuff around. And then like a big chunk of her like POV chapter for that one is just kind of like her having to put everything back the way it was, and then kind of like her the way like the rest of her entire day is affected by like having to do that whole entire like thing for the rest of, you know, like an hour or so of like putting everything back, and then like every other spoon consuming thing in her day.
Mm. I like how that, I mean, and I've found this a little bit in some of my writing. It gives meaning to the kind of busy work that would otherwise take place in a story where a character's somewhere doing something. This like imbues that with a little more like resonance, you know, because there's a reason why they're doing those things, right?
Yeah, a lot of the time, you know, just in a regular story, it's like if a character cleans their room, that you kind of like cut to the end of that process. Then the process is kind of the point, I guess, in that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to yeah, take the mic, go for it.
Ceeley, do you have anything like that going on in your stories?
Right now I'm writing with the autistic girl. She's 11, 12, and she has these anxiety spirals. So her parents will say something innocuous like they're going out for the day. And she'll go into, like I have before, what if they don't come back? What if they get in a wreck? What's going to happen then? Am I going to have to take care of the house? No, is somebody going to come and get me? Where's all the food? Do I have enough food? Where are my grandparents? And it just extends all the way out until she's paralyzed and can't do anything. And that's sort of the heart of the story, is her learning to break herself out of that. But again, it's something she's always going to have, and it's something she's going to have to learn to process through each time it happens.
Yeah, I'm working on a young adult story where one of the characters is an albino. And so, you know, constantly pointing out to the other characters, well, hold on, I need to put on sunscreen. You know, yes, this is not the most comfortable clothes to wear, but if I don't, I burn. Yes, I have to have an umbrella. Yes, I have to have sunglasses in class. And, you know, basic accommodations that make their life easier, other people find an imposition. You know, oh, well, I'm not allowed to wear sunglasses. Why the hell can you? You know, and, you know, that's in one of the stories I have, you know, it all depends on, to me, to what the story is about. If it's about a person, I often have various disabilities in that. If it's about, you know, this overarching plot, then sometimes those characters don't come to mind easy. And I think that's probably part of being caught up in this culture where overarching large plot where you're maybe fighting in a war or something, disabilities don't seem to exist for people who fight on that kind of level. And that's dealing with my own, you know, issues from society trying to push down that ableism.
Mm.
Yeah, it's all ableism. Ugh. And yeah, and I know it gets in the way of my coming up with story ideas because my brain immediately goes to these completely able characters. You know, I don't think of, well, you know, would a person with some sort of movement disability enjoy this? Though I've met people with movement disabilities who love dancing and found ways to dance, or you know, people who find ways to find their happiness past whatever their disability is. But ableism kind of keeps me from being able to see those stories, despite the fact that being disabled myself, I'm creating my own story that's like that. I'm seeing people nodding along.
Well, I was thinking that even something as normal as glasses in these action stories, you don't see people having them a lot. They don't use them correctly, so if they get knocked off their face, I'm completely blind. And I expect a lot of people who use, glasses and contacts are. And it's something as easy as that is not being thought of to add to these characters. They're not thinking about, greater disabilities either.
Mhm.
And Ceeley, that's a great point. I mean, I think about when I was in the military, the people I knew who had glasses, even some pretty severe visual disabilities, at least to a certain degree, they would be given these glasses that would withstand almost anything, and then bands to wear around that you had to wear when you're in the field. You will wear this.
They were beautiful.
Oh yeah, they were just. It's like racquetball glasses that had ugly poured on them, and it made these people who, when you point out glasses, how simple that is, that's a easy way to add a little diversity to the characters.
Yeah, I'm curious, like in your stories and books, like do you include scenes where stigma is a big part of how your characters are treated? Like Heather, I think you were saying earlier, you don't want to cause PTSD in someone reading a scene about PTSD, or maybe you want to provide a warning about that in advance. Like, I try to write realistic scenes that show really the degree that people can be horrible to other people with disabilities. And I always think about, like, how do I do this to make that point, but to not like participate in that, like to not inflict that on the character, like to show them resisting or surviving that in a way that's, provides a little bit of hope.
Yeah. I know in the story where I made someone, basically it was accurate enough to spin them up into a panic attack. I had the character start the whole spiral down into a panic attack, and as they spiraled, I got more descriptive in how it was like, because if people have never experienced it, well, this is what it's like. And unfortunately, readers who have experience might get caught in it. And for me, it was more important to show what the character was going through accurately. So I was more focused on what the needs of the character and the needs of the story than the discomfort of the reader. But those are both really important things to bring up.
Tenacity, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, I guess just it's sort of there's a tension between I guess exhibitionism or like tragedy porn, as was brought up before, and then like just being accurate, as well as the issue of like potentially triggering people. Yeah, I guess it's hard to find a balance. That was my main point.
Yeah. That is kind of a big deal. I mean, how do you make it accurate but accessible? Because if you write anything too accurately. Someone might kind of get upset or get triggered because you're trying to make something accurate. I mean, have you guys experienced that with any feedback you've gotten from readers?
I heard, so after my first book, Broken Mirror, came out, I heard from a few folks who work in mental health that they identified that they thought it was a familiar representation of things that they've experienced. So that was kind of like, for me, I was like, okay, well, that was good feedback. But it's not something I try to like market the book on, like I just don't feel comfortable doing that. Yeah.
I'm seeing Valerie has mentioned host has disabled attendee chat. Can we have the chat back? I hope someone will fix that. Okay. Let's see. Trying to think of any other things that could that play into the this with disabilities before we get to questions people might have. What's the most rewarding scenes you have ever written dealing with disability? The one that made you feel good, like you had done something right with your life by writing this scene?
I already mentioned mine, actually, so that's my answer.
Check that box.
that was just very quick.
There's a scene in the first book where the main character is getting bullied, and so gets in a fight because his illness is stigmatized, and ends up going to the nurse to get checked out, and he's for a moment just alone, kind of no one there to take care of him, no one to ask him if he's okay, just like going through it by himself. And he kind of has this moment of synesthesia, which is part of the symptom set that he experiences. And despite being a very kind of sad and lonely moment, it's also a little bit beautiful, and it's something that he latches onto as a sign that he's not all bad, and a signal that the universe isn't out to get him, that there's like still kind of little moments of beauty and joy in between all of the awfulness.
Ceeley?
I can't really pick one out.
That's
with
fair.
writing for children, it's always trying to get them to feel good within themselves and to up their confidence no matter what they're going through. So a lot of it is not external when they're trying to be built up. It's all internal, and I don't have one in particular scene that made me feel right or great yet. Early career, I'll get one.
Hey, it happens. For me, it was actually in the trans military veteran story. 3 people come to do a gay bashing to an ex-infantry person who has a cane, and the military teaches you how to use rifles to fight, and if you hold it, it's like that. And so yeah, they get hurt in this, but by going through this, they actually come to this realization that maybe I'm not broken like I thought I was. Yeah, I'm not as physical as I was before, but I'm not broken. Look, I still was able to do this. it sucked, but I was still able to do it. And so, it's the character gets beat up, but actually feels better afterwards because it proved something to themselves. And sometimes I think that's one of the things a lot of people with neurodiversity or physical disabilities of one type or another face is you think that's it, you're done. Stick a fork in you. And how do you get past that stumbling block where you're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm just broken.
I could say another thing I'm proud of. There's a relationship that I wrote where two people kind of take care of each other by like the depressed person will clean for the OCD person when they're too like spoonless to do it. And then the OCD person will kind of like poke the depressed person to be like, hey, we're gonna hang out now, when they kind of like turn off a little bit. Yeah, that kind of like, queers helping each other survive kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know I wouldn't really be, to the degree of successful I am without my wife. She pokes me, I poke her. We're both, got various disabilities and neurodivergence, and that can make some days very challenging, especially when everything for both of us goes off. And then it's just you're doing everything you can to hold yourself together, and so are they. But then there's other days when you're able to reach out and go, hey, it's okay, it's going to be okay, and you can give each other that moment of comfort. I like seeing scenes like that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it's based on the person that I poke the most, and me. So
yeah, I get that. Okay, well, it's 7:38. I can't think of anything else, and we have a question. Anonymous attendee. Should you be writing a main character who has disabilities that you do not yourself have? Not something like glasses, that can be more universal to understand. I realize these days there are sensitivity readers, but also know that today there is a lot of, is this your story to tell? And if you aren't part of that culture or have that disability, then I get the feeling it's something you shouldn't really touch as a main character. No, it's not. Well, that's sort of a question. So should you write a character who has disabilities you yourself do not share?
I think one thing to put first is that not everyone comes out about all their disabilities in their author bio. So if you see someone writing about a disability that you don't think they have, that's not necessarily true.
Invisible illnesses are a thing. And you don't often just come out and say, oh yeah, here is my entire thing. I mean, because then you feel like that moment in cartoons where the person unrolls the scroll and it just keeps going.
Yeah, and you shouldn't feel like you have to tell a story that's important to you, or you shouldn't have to clear it with a special disability card. That creates just kind of a culture that I think a lot of people would feel shit out of storytelling if they felt they had to declare all of their disabilities just before they could publish.
Ceeley, Cody?
If you want to write a main character that's outside of your wheelhouse, you better be able to do it correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think the question even had some of the complexity baked into it when we look at well, are we talking about the main character or additional characters, and sort of what's the burden of representation or the burden of accuracy? I mean, you want to make sure that your characters are doing what you intend and that your intentions are good in terms of creating a good story and having it being entertaining. I feel like there's multiple poles that I think about when I'm writing a story. It's like, what is the story meant to do? What is the story meant to represent? And like, is the story entertaining? And I'm always trying to like move in the right way between those things. I don't know, maybe I'm overcomplicating it, but those are on my mind when I'm writing, and I'm trying to like be true to each of those.
Yeah, I mean, sensitivity readers are a wonderful thing. And yeah, as a writer, if you're writing something that you do not personally experience or your life has not personally dragged you through, then yeah, you had better do your research. I mean, readers nowadays catch the lack of truth very quickly. And so you had better research the hell out of it, figure out from that research how to write about it, and then sure as hell get one or two sensitivity readers to check you. I mean,
I think there's a difference between doing an issues book or writing a adventure story with someone who is disabled. Like, you can write a book about somebody who is blind and how you live in that culture, or you can write Daredevil.
yes. And
Daredevil doesn't need as much know-how within the culture because it's not very much about him being blind. It's about him being a superhero who is blind.
Like I've seen a lot of people, especially on trans issues, talk about, well, I don't want another coming out story. I just want another story where the main character happens to be trans. Or, anytime where, what's part of the first part of the character? Is it their disability, or is it they're this cool character who happens to have a disability, or several of them? It's not like you just get one. It's like, Pokemon, all of a sudden you've got a stable of 40 and you don't know what happened.
I'm curious, what are the like speculative or like magic or space elements to your writing, and what are you thinking about like with that and disability? Like I'll share an example. So like the main character in the work in progress I'm writing on is becoming friends with an artificial intelligence because that's more comfortable than some of the people around him. And so that's one way where it's like kind of the speculative element, but it goes to some of his mental state.
Yeah, I mean, I try to avoid fix, where this person has this disability, but technology or magic or what have you makes it all better. Because I mean, my personal experience with disability is I may get to a point where I can deal really, really well with things and basically navigate my day almost as if I don't have an issue, but I do. And it does come up now and again. And so I don't want to magic it away. I want to kind of share that experience with other people, so you have stumbling blocks. You'll find ways around, through, over, sideways, or whatever. So nothing's a great cure-all. Tenacity?
Yeah, my book that I'm querying right now is basically about like hyper capitalism in space. So there's a lot of like, how are these characters affected by the fact that everything in their society kind of wants to kill them and people like them, low key. So like standards of achievement, economic survival. I think all that stuff really comes into play when like my stories are, interacting with disabilities in my characters.
That sounds like hyper ableism come to consume people.
Yeah, I think capitalism and ableism are really entwined, just because like under capitalism you are what you can do,
right.
You are the money you can make with like the abilities that you can put to work for capital. Yeah. Hope we're all on the left here.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Someone asked, again, anonymous attendee, as a neurodivergent author, how do you write characters who are not neurodivergent? For me, different neurodivergencies make more sense than someone not having any, and I don't know how to approach writing a neurotypical character.
Yes, same.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely try. I play around with language, right? Like with every character I'm writing, I'm trying to have the language reflect a kind of different personality, a different way of thinking. So, you know, each of these is not a people; they're a character, and yeah. There's no, you know, there's no like gold standard, oh, I've done it right or wrong, but that's something that I'm thinking about. Is how do I make each character sound different, do different things, have different priorities and thoughts, even different like cadences and syntaxes, because I don't know, it makes me happy when I'm writing.
I think about the fact that I have at least one or two neurotypical friends, believe it or not. And, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, you have to live the burden of being the neurotypical in my story. Congratulations. And so, you know, I just observe people and I listen to how they talk and I look how they, you know, proceed. Yeah, they look neurotypical to me. So I actually don't know if they have a neurodivergency. I mean, honestly, sometimes people don't know. There are people who have ADHD who mask it so well, or have found coping techniques that help them so much that it's hard to see that they have this neurodivergence. So really, is anyone truly neurotypical besides, you know, cis het white males between 18 and 20 who are in college campuses taking psychology and are therefore the source of all these tests?
Neurotypical
Yeah,
is a social choice.
Yes, it's a social choice. So when did you choose to be neurotypical? Interesting.
True. And like, I mean, as far as how capitalism again like intersects with this, like if you have more money, you can look more neurotypical, you know, like if you have the right food, you can like, you know, give your body a better chance at like masking and appearing, you know. There are so many ways that like other methods of privilege can make a person appear neurotypical when really it's yeah hard to tell.
It's, can you, you know, can your character or can you as a person juggle things that day or that minute or that, you know, whatever situation. Okay, one more question. It seems from Robin Rowland, it seems that all the societies you're talking about so far is high tech or futuristic with technology. What are stories that are in the far past or post-apocalyptic? There's archaeological evidence that past societies did support people with physical disabilities. What advice do you have in creating characters in these settings? Excellent question. That brings to mind, someone asked Margaret Mead, what is the first sign of civilization to your mind? And her answer was someone with a healed broken bone, like their leg was broken and it healed. Because that showed that the society was taking care of itself. So in a lot of these early civilization or post-apocalyptic societies, people lean heavily on each other. And you're surely not going to want the person who is the doctor who they've broken a leg, you're not going to want them gone because, you know, oh, they have a broken leg, so we'll figure something out. And yeah, in ancient medieval societies, there are lots of ways of doing it. They were even doing surgery, you know, thousands of years ago on the brain. So
I saw an article today about a skeleton that was unearthed of a woman in Spain, who, and it was like evidence that she was probably part of a more matriarchal society than we had thought, because she had all this like silver jewelry. She also happened to have a physical disability. And so they were saying they were gonna have to rethink kind of this civilization. I think it was Bronze Age. But I mean, in terms of the advice part of that question, you know, it's like any part of world building where you want to provide the details and perspective that allow a reader to immerse themselves and understand how it all works. So, you know, we get caught up in kind of saying there's a right answer. You know, there's a right answer for your story, and there's a way to figure it out, and that's part of the fun, I think.
Ceeley, Tenacity, you want to chime in?
For sure. I mean, the Pythia in ancient Greece was someone who hallucinated and who was considered like in touch with the gods because of that. And I mean, like, there are many ways where, like, I mean, when you have a panic attack in response to something, I mean, maybe that thing actually is dangerous. It's partially your brain taking care of you. So, like, there's many ways in which certain things that we consider disabilities were like actually considered not bad, you know, not something that you should have to be taken care of for, but actually like a valuable thing to contribute. Yeah, I think ADHD is supposed to be like, you know, people who are really good in battle, you know, like hyper focus, like large amounts of energy, stuff like that.
Hyper focused, but also attentive to changes in minute detail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because as I was the one who taught the combat writing course, that's absolutely life-saving in actual combat. Is little details like that changing could tell you someone's sneaking up behind you or flanking you. So yeah, it'd be valuable. Ceeley, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you all said it. Like,
well, I'm glad we're on a page.
A page.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cody, Ceeley, Tenacity. This is, I think, has been a really fun panel. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. 34 participants. Outstanding. Thank you all for coming and listening. I hope you guys have fun. There are 7 minutes to the next panel. So I guess we can continue this on the Discord if anyone has any questions there. So hopefully the tech person will put it, you know, wow.
It's happening.
Someone is sharing their screen.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather, for keeping us moving forward.
Well, you know, I just dove on it. None of us talked about it, so I hope it worked.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, take care, all of you, and enjoy the con.
Yeah.
You too.
It was great to meet and talk to you all you guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.